Hi, Gary DeWaal here, and this is Bridging the Week, February 3rd to 7th, and today is February 10th, 2014. Good morning. Love may be in the air because Friday is Valentine's Day. Hey, don't forget, chocolates or flowers, get them early while they're still available. But whether there will be love this week in the financial service industry may depend on how certain important deadlines and hearings play out. Among other things, this week we will see European financial and non-financial institutions begin reporting their OTC and exchange-traded derivative transactions under EMIR beginning on February 12th. The first interest rate swaps certified as made available to trade, mandatorily being executed in most instances, are subject to the rules of a CEF or designated contract market starting on February 15th. Certain non-U.S. swaps trading platforms likely being required to qualify by February 15 as CEFs in order to handle for U.S. persons swaps subject to MAT requirements, absent relief from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and public hearings at the CFTC addressing how to handle the execution of multiple-leg, so-called package transactions, where one leg involves a swap subject to a MAT certification, certain aspects of the CFTC's cross-border guidance, and issues related to automated trading systems. However, before we get to this week, let's talk about some of the developments of the past week, of which, as usual, there were plenty. In a speech last week before the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, Mark Wetjen, acting chairman of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, appeared to signal a more conciliatory approach in addressing the international coordination of swaps regulation. Among other things, with an important deadline related to the impact on non-U.S. swaps trading facilities upcoming on February 15, acting Chairman Wetjen suggested that greater reliance on home country supervision of trading venues and clearinghouses, as opposed to each country insisting on its own regulation, may promote quote-unquote efficient and liquid markets. Acting Chairman Wetjen also implied that there may be additional determinations that foreign jurisdictions' regulation of swaps is quote-unquote comparable to and as comprehensive as U.S. regulation. This could open the door to more non-U.S. swap dealers and major swap participants relying on more of their local domestic rules to comply with many of their requirements under CFTC rules. Wait, what's that breeze? It seems like a breath of fresh air. Whoa! Let's see where this goes, but it seems promising. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange announced a number of exchange disciplinary and access denial actions, two of which are particularly noteworthy because of issues related to position limits in related contracts and the claimed reach of CME jurisdiction. In these matters, first, the New York Mercantile Exchange settled two matters with Vermilion Asset Management related to violations of its position limit requirements. In the first matter, the firm agreed to pay a fine of $45,000 related to its violation on March 22, 2013, of a conditional position limit it had been granted in connection with the April 2013 Henry Hub natural gas look-alike last day financial futures contract. According to the exchange, Vermilion had been granted a 1,000 lot position limit on the financially settled contract, subject to the firm holding no positions in the related physically settled April 2013 Henry Hub natural gas futures contract on its last three trading dates. However, on one of those dates, Vermilion held a nominal intraday position of just 35 lots, but that nominal position caused it to violate the conditional limit. The firm also agreed to pay a fine of $35,000 related to a second but earlier violation of a position limit on November 26, 2012, also involving the Henry Hub natural gas futures contract, but this time the December 2012 contract. Here too, Vermilion had been granted a 5,000 lot position limit on the financially settled contract, provided the firm held no positions in the related physically settled contract, again on the last three trading dates. However, on one of those dates, it also held an intraday position in excess of 2,000 lots thus violating the conditional limit. And in the second matter, both the Commodity Exchange and NYMEX settled with Merrill Lynch Commodities Europe, headquartered in the UK, in connection with two matters for failing to supervise an employee who allegedly engaged in wash trades on February 5, 2014. Apparently, a Merrill Lynch Commodities employee trader, Guillaume Marchand, engaged in a series of buy and sell trades in various gold options and copper futures, as well as crude options and futures contracts, between accounts with the same beneficial owner. Merrill Commodities agreed to pay a fine of $15,000 for each matter, or $30,000 in total. Mr. Marchand, who again was just an employee of Merrill Europe, was charged separately by both the COMEX and NYMEX related to these matters and agreed to pay fines totaling $10,000. In connection with the COMEX matter, Mr. Marchand was also barred from all CME trading for 5 business days. The Merrill Lynch Commodities matter should remind members that the CME considers that it has jurisdiction over not only its members, but employees of its members, certain of their affiliates, as well as employees of these affiliates too. Wow. The Vermilion Asset Management matter should remind trading firms how important it is today to have the capacity to monitor in real time trading positions on a futures equivalent basis against position limits, particularly in situations where position limits in one contract may be conditioned on adherence to position restrictions in another contract. Even a temporary intraday position limit violation corrected by the end of the day may be prosecuted as a rule violation. Can't wait to see when we have to aggregate swaps and futures positions. Brown Brothers Harriman & Co. has agreed to pay a fine of $8 million related to FINRA's allegation that it had substantial anti-money laundering compliance failures from January 1st, 2009 through June 30th, 2013 related to its monitoring and detection of suspicious activity related to transactions in low-price securities, so-called penny stocks. In addition, Harold Crawford, its global AML compliance officer during the relevant time, agreed to pay a fine of $25,000 and a 1-month suspension from associating with any FINRA member in any capacity. This matter arose in connection with BBH's, or Brown Brother Harriman's, business of executing sales or, as a custodian, delivering to other firms of shares of penny stocks. During the relevant time, Brown Brothers Harriman conducted penny stock transactions on behalf of certain bank customers through omnibus accounts in known bank secrecy havens such as Switzerland, Guernsey, and Jersey, without obtaining critical information regarding the stock's beneficial owners, how the stock was obtained, or the beneficial owner's relationship with the issuer. Brown Brothers and Mr. Crawford, says FINRA, were aware through AML investigations, regulatory inquiries, and other sources that certain of its clients were depositing and then quickly selling large blocks of penny stocks. However, they failed adequately to monitor and detect suspicious penny stock activity in general, and failed to ensure that suspicious activity was reporting to regulators as required. Geez, missing red flags again. By the way, back in 2007, Brown Brothers entered into a written agreement with the New York State Banking Department to improve its system of internal controls related to the verification of account identities and to devote sufficient resources to implement and maintain an effective AML program. I guess that didn't work out too well. In a notice issued last week, the CFTC's Division of Swap Dealer and Intermediary Oversight advised FCMs to file newly required executed template acknowledgement letters with it through the Windjammer online filing system, and for depositories holding customer funds, including FCMs clearing for other FCMs, to file these reports through a newly developed online submission site. In the guidance, the division also instructed FCMs to also file through Windjammer other mandatory filings under the newly enhanced customer rules. These included certain regulatory notices, risk assessment reports, risk management policy and procedures, risk exposure reports, and their certified annual financial report. The European Securities and Market Authority has issued an opinion setting forth its minimum expectations regarding the conduct of investment firms when they sell complex products to retail investors. ESMA has issued this opinion because it is quote-unquote concerned that firms' selling practices under the Markets and Financial Instruments Directive, quote, may have fallen short in a number of cases, end of quote. The opinion is directed both to investment firms as well as national regulators. Complex products include derivatives, so you might want to pay attention to this. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission announced a draft strategic plan for its fiscal years 2014 to 2018. This plan includes the SEC's proposed mission, values, strategic goals, major initiatives, and performance metrics for this 5-year period. Although the strategic goals are mostly very high level, for example, establish and maintain an effective regulatory environment, there are proposed specific areas for initiatives. These include modernizing beneficial ownership reporting, modernizing the regulatory treatment and valuation of certain portfolio holdings of registered investment companies, for example, derivatives, reviewing the impact of algorithmic and other automated trading on markets to assess the impact on volatility and to consider, if warranted, quote, an appropriate policy response, end of quote, and evaluating equity market structure. Comments are due by March 10, 2014. The Monetary Authority of Singapore and the Singapore Exchange also are considering issues related to securities market structure and practices. In connection with an ongoing review, the Monetary Authority and the Singapore Exchange have concluded that all is well in Singapore's securities market. However, MAS and Singapore Exchange are considering possible enhancements related to measures to promote orderly trading, for example, minimum security prices, collateral requirements for securities trading, and enhanced safeguards for customer assets, transparency of market intervention measures, and to admit new listings and enforcing rule breaches. Comments are due by May 2, 2014. And finally, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission commenced administrative enforcement actions against 2 friends related to the efforts by one individual to avoid a prohibition by his broker-dealer employer from holding securities for too long. He endeavored to avoid the restriction by having his friend's different broker-dealer employer temporarily purchase the relevant securities subject to a buyback arrangement that would ensure his friend's employer a profit. According to the SEC, Thomas Ganella sought out the assistance of his friend Ryan King to avoid a charge to a trading account and ultimately a reduction to his bonus he would incur if he held certain securities for more than 3 months. Mr. Ryan settled with the SEC by agreeing to pay disgorgement and prejudgment interest in excess of $24,000 US and not to work in the securities industry for at least 3 years. Additional financial penalties may be determined at a later date. The action against Mr. Ganella is pending. Both employees previously were terminated by their employers for this matter. Geez, is this what friends are for? Well, that's it for this week's edition of Gary DeWaal's Bridging the Week. As always, there are more stories and greater details on these stories on the article version of Bridging the Week at my website at www.GaryDeWaalAndAssociates.com. Take a look. I can't wait to see how this week's developments play out, but we won't do so until next week. Until then, ciao.